Okay, let's get right into it. We're looking at two really powerful blueprints for how to be resilient. One of them comes from the chaos of the Roman Empire, this ancient philosophy for a world of fate and duty. And the other, it's a modern bestseller, famous for its swearing and for basically attacking the whole idea of positive thinking. Both of them promise a way to handle life's biggest challenges. So the real question is, which mental operating system is the right one for us today? I mean, if you're nodding your head to this, you are so not alone. For a lot of us, modern life doesn't feel like a journey. It feels more like a frantic race. There's this constant pressure to achieve, to be better, to be happy, and maybe the most exhausting part of all, to broadcast just how happy you are to the entire world. And wow, this slide really frames the stakes perfectly. A researcher who was studying young people today captured their anxiety with this pretty chilling phrase: failure is true death. It's not just about, missing a career goal. It feels like a fundamental threat to who you are. The pressure to invent a meaningful life completely from scratch has become a huge burden. And this isn't just a feeling, right? The data actually backs this up. Research has shown that the average college student back in the 1990s was more anxious than 85% of students from the 1950s. This anxiety isn't just some temporary bug, it's becoming a core feature of modern life. So, how do we build a mental OS that can actually handle all this? All right, let's start with the original operating system, a philosophy that's been around for over 2,000 years, Stoicism. And this wasn't dreamed up in some quiet library. It was a practical toolkit for a world filled with plagues, wars, and totally unpredictable emperors, a world where most things were completely out of your control. And it was used by everyone, from slaves like Epictetus all the way up to the Roman emperor himself, Marcus Aurelius. And this, right here, is the radical idea at the very heart of Stoicism, summed up perfectly by Aurelius. In a world defined by fate and duty, the real power wasn't in changing the world around you, it was in mastering the world inside you. See, strength isn't about controlling events, it's about controlling your response to those events. That's the key. And this core idea actually has a name: the dichotomy of control. Think of it as the master tool in the Stoic toolkit. The idea is, well, it sounds simple, but it's incredibly hard to do in practice. You just have to divide everything you face in life into one of two lists: things you can control and things you absolutely cannot. Now, what's so powerful about seeing it laid out like this is just how simple and, well, brutal it is. The only things that are really yours are internal: your thoughts, your reactions, your character. Everything else, from the weather to what other people think about you, goes in that right-hand column. And the Stoics would argue that almost all of our anxiety comes from wasting our precious energy on that right-hand column. So let's jump forward a couple thousand years to the modern reboot, Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Now, this isn't a philosophy for a world of limited options, it's for our world of unlimited options, information overload, and the stress of having to choose everything. It's aimed right at the anxiety that comes from having way too many things to care about. Manson's whole thing is a direct attack on our culture of toxic positivity. He basically argues that the constant pressure to be happy is exactly what's making us miserable. So the secret isn't to get rid of problems, because that's impossible. The secret is to find better problems, the kind of struggles that actually feel meaningful and worthwhile to you. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, it's basically a filtering process. First, you have to decide what few things are truly worth caring about. Those are your core values. Then you just have to accept that problems are a fact of life. But here's the crucial part. Fulfillment doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from willingly taking on the pain that lines up with your chosen values and just ruthlessly ignoring all the other noise. And this brings us to the main event. We've got the Stoic approach, which was born from a need to endure a world of fate. And then we have Manson's approach, born from a need to navigate a world of choice. So are they just the same ideas in different packaging, or do they offer fundamentally different solutions? Okay, so let's tackle the big one first. This is a super common critique, right? A lot of people read Manson and they hear all the echoes of Stoicism, accepting hardship, focusing on what matters, and they figure he's just repackaging ancient wisdom with a few more swear words. And you can totally see why people think this. I mean, as this reviewer puts it, Manson basically took these core Stoic principles and made them super accessible for a generation that might not pick up a book by Seneca. The overlap seems pretty obvious. But is it really that simple?
Well, here's the twist. Manson himself pushes back on this label. He literally says, "Sorry to rain on your parade, I'm not a Stoic." He argues his philosophy is actually more influenced by things like existentialism and Buddhism. He sees a key difference. For Stoics, the goal is virtue and a kind of inner peace. For Manson, the goal isn't peace. It's about engaging in a meaningful struggle. So that kind of complicates the whole Stoicism light theory.
So let's flip the question around. If Manson isn't just Stoicism, could it be that ancient Stoicism itself isn't a great fit for us today? The Stoic focus on rational detachment was a survival tool in a really brutal world. But in an age where we value emotional openness and talking about mental health, does that detachment start to feel a little more like repression?
And this slide really breaks down that subtle but super important difference. For Stoics, any obstacle is a chance to practice virtue, to be calm, to be rational, to be a good person. It doesn't really matter what the obstacle is. For Manson, it's the total opposite. It's not about enduring any problem. It's about actively choosing the specific problems that give your life meaning. The choice is everything.
So where does that leave us? Well, instead of picking a side, what if we built a hybrid? What if we took the best of both worlds? We need that Stoic foundation to endure the things we really can't control, like, global events. But we also desperately need Manson's filter to navigate our modern world of infinite choice. We need to put them together to create a more powerful mental OS for today. And here's what that upgraded OS looks like. Step 1, that's your Stoic bedrock. Practice acceptance. Just clearly see and acknowledge the things you cannot change. Step 2 is the Manson filter. Of all the things you can influence, you have to consciously choose which problems are actually worth your time and energy. And step 3 is where it all comes together. Treat those chosen struggles not as burdens, but as the very opportunities that create a meaningful life. Let's break that down just a little more. When it comes to control, Stoicism gives us the powerful technique, focus inward, but Manson gives us the strategy. Apply that focus only to what you've decided truly matters. When it comes to adversity, Stoicism gives us the mindset. The obstacle is the way. Manson tells us how to find the right way by choosing meaningful problems. And with values, Stoicism provides this ideal of universal virtue, while Manson makes it personal and actionable. Just pick a few things and commit to them.
So here's the bottom line. The ultimate purpose of this new mental OS isn't to reach some fantasy world where life is free from pain. That's a trap. The goal is to consciously build a life that's defined by meaningful challenges, the kind of problems you're actually proud and willing to solve.
And that brings us to the final question, the one that's just for you. If the meaning of your life is found not in avoiding suffering, but in the suffering you are willing to endure for something you care about, what challenges are truly worthy of you? Which ones are you going to choose?